My 2002 Honda CRV ignition switch repair. This is the second time I've taken this apart, and I will tell you that I followed other YouTube videos that were very helpful, and they did work for me. So the first thing I did was I followed some of those videos on how to take the plastic parts off that cover the steering column in order to access the column and this module. The second step was I followed directions on how to take out these plastic electrical connectors, and that whole casing comes out. That got me down to this part here, and that is the top bracket for the module that holds the thing together, the module in place. That has two breakaway bolts on it, so that when they're tightened down, the tops break off and you can't access it and take it off with any tools easily. And so I did watch the videos. I'll tell you, it did take some time and some patience, but I did use a hammer and a chisel to get in onto the sides of those bolts and tap them, you know, each side on both of them. I had to tap the sides around in a circle patiently in order to get those bolts to loosen up, and they did eventually come out. So once this bracket was loose and the bolts were out, then the whole module, you know, falls down and comes out. I tried this last year by taking the cylinder out only, just the cylinder part, so roughly this area here, out of the whole module. I took it to a locksmith, and the locksmith keyed my new cylinder to my key, and I put it back in, and it worked fine for about a year. But then it started to fail. I asked the locksmith why he thought it was, and he thought the internal parts, so the internal part of the module that the cylinder goes into, was also worn. I didn't really think about asking the locksmith if he could do it, but my auto repair guy at the shop suggested I give it a try. So I did, and I took this whole module out again. I took the whole thing to the locksmith, and he did replace the tumblers inside the module that the cylinder goes into. So it has a new cylinder, and the tumblers inside the module now have been repaired as well. And I am now in the process of just putting it back together, which is not really that bad. As I put this back together, I am not going to use the security bolts. I'm going to use, I'm just going to use the same size threaded bolts, but I'm going to use some hex bolts instead. I know it's not as secure, you know, as they're meant to be, but it's such a pain getting this thing apart that I think, you know, that's just the way I'm going to do it, and I'm not necessarily recommending that. I'm just saying that I'm going to do it because I've already done this twice. So if you're thinking about doing this, again, I say that the videos that are on YouTube that the people have put on are very good. They're very helpful, and I think there's a possibility, if you can get to this part here, if you can get to this step where you can take it out and take it into a locksmith, that's great. I suggest you ask the locksmith ahead of time, you know, what their abilities are. But if you can't take this apart yourself, you don't want to, maybe ask your auto repair person, instead of replacing this whole module. You know, replacing this whole module, buying a new one is really involved. It can be very expensive, and it can involve having to program the keys, program those to the module, which is another added expense, and it can be quite a bit. So this can be a really expensive process, but for me to take this out myself, take it to the locksmith and have it repaired, cost me under $100. And he assured me that it should last me a good long while based on what he saw. So I do recommend that you ask ahead before you start taking it apart and think it through. You know, ask all the questions you can, but it's really not that